Good evening. Welcome to the, what date is it? Welcome to the January 30th meeting of the Carrboro Town Council. Um, and I do not see our, is she, oh, there she is, Liza. Come on up and honor us with some of your poetry. Thank you.
I was hiding there on the front row.
Looking for you over here.
That's okay. I know sometimes I move around here. It's good to see you all. I can't believe we're here at the end of January. And we're about to go into Black History Month, and I'm going to bring some guest poets in. So I want to kind of start us off a little headed there. And I want to read one of my favorite poets, really. She's just incredible and has given so much to poetry over the years. And she's 80 years old right now. Her name is Nikki Giovanni. And her full name, I'm going to read just a little bit about her and then read one of her poems that I like. Yolanda Cornelia Nikki Giovanni. And Nikki is the name that she was called, or is called, I think, by her friends and family. She was born in Knoxville, Tennessee on June 7th, 1943. Hi. She's 80 years old. She graduated magna cum laude in 1967 with a BA in history. She organized the Black Arts Festival in Cincinnati. She studied social work at the University of Pennsylvania and then studied at the MFA program at Columbia in 1969. She has several collections of poetry and in 1970 published one of the earliest anthologies of Black women's poetry. She is also the author of 11 illustrated children's books. She taught for many years at Rutgers University and at Virginia Tech. She has numerous awards. She's done incredible stuff in her life. Her honors include the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Award for Dedication and Commitment to Service, 7 NAACP Image Awards for Literature, the Langston Hughes Award for Distinguished Contributions to Letters and Arts, a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts, as well as 30 honorary degrees from national colleges and universities. She's been given keys to more than a dozen cities, so she can get in places. Several magazines named Giovanni Woman of the Year, including Essence, Mademoiselle, Ebony, and Ladies' Home Journal. She was the first recipient of the Rosa Parks Woman of Courage Award. She has served as poetry judge for the National Book Awards and was finalist for a Grammy in Spoken Word. So if you don't know Nikki Giovanni, please check out some of her poetry. And I'm going to read one tonight that I like, and I was thinking of it because I just got our car back from after a deer hit me in it. And so this one I was kind of just thinking of that. Possum Crossing. Backing out the driveway, the car lights cast an eerie glow in the morning fog, centering on movement in the rain-slick street. Hitting brakes, I anticipate a squirrel or a cat or sometimes a little raccoon. I once braked for a blind little mole who, try though he did, could not escape the cat toying with his life. Mother-to-be possum occasionally lopes home, being naturally slow. Her condition makes her even more ginger. We need a sign, Possum Crossing, to warn coffee-gurgling neighbors. We share the streets with more than trucks and vans and railroad crossings. All birds, being the living kin of dinosaurs, think themselves invincible and pay no heed to the rolling wheels while they dine on an unlucky rabbit. I hit brakes for the flutter of the lights, hoping it's not a deer or a skunk or a groundhog. Coffee splashes over the cup, which I quickly put away from me and into the empty passenger seat. I look, relieved and exasperated, to discover I have just missed a big wet leaf, struggling to lift itself into the wind and live. And I just want to say one more note. I love this poem for what it is at face value, but I think there's a deeper meaning there as well. So think Possum Crossing if you want to go look it up. Nikki Giovanni, thank you very much, and welcome in just a couple days to Black History Month and the end of January. So thank you. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Liza. It's amazing. If I could get Mr. Herman Fouché, President of the Chapel Hill Carrboro branch of the NAACP, to join me at the podium. I will be reading a proclamation for Black History Month. Whereas, since the beginning of Negro History Week in 1926 by noted historian Carter G. Woodson, and the subsequent expansion to Black History Month in 1976, February has been a time when the nation reflects on the struggles and accomplishments of African Americans in the United States. And whereas North Carolina boasts many noteworthy names and places for Black History Month, the unknown indentured servants who were free men and could vote in colonial times, soldiers who fought on either side during the American Revolution, and men and women who offered resistance and fled to freedom during antebellum times, or joined in the fight for freedom with the Civil War. Through the Civil Rights era to modern times, North Carolina has mirrored or amplified the African American movements to freedom and equality in the United States. And whereas the Black History Month 2024 theme, African Americans and the Arts, explores the key influence African Americans have had in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. And whereas Black people have played and continue to play significant roles in Carrboro's economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. And whereas Black leaders in Carrboro have included several elected officials, including Alderman Braxton Fouché, Carrboro's first Black elected official who served from 1969 to 1981. Robert Drakeford, who served as alderman from 1975 to 1977 and as mayor from 1977 to 1983. Alderman Hilliard Caldwell, who served from 1981 to 1997. Alderman Henry Hank Anderson III, who served from 1993 to 1998. Alderman Joel Hall Braun, who served from 1999 to 2011 and currently serves as a district court judge for Orange and Chatham counties. Alderman Michelle Johnson, who served from 2011 to 2017. And Councilmember Barbara Fouché, who served from 2017 to 2023 and is now Carrboro's first Black woman mayor. And whereas Black people have played leadership roles as employees of the town of Carrboro, including Richard Knight Jr., who was the first Black person to serve as town manager from 1976 to 1980, and later became the first Black city manager of Dallas, Texas. And Richard J. White III, who served as town manager from 2021 to 2023. And whereas the Carrboro Community Park was renamed the Henry Anderson III Park in honor of the late Alderman Hank Anderson. Baldwin Park was named for Henry W. Baldwin, a local Black community member and landowner. And Martin Luther King Jr. Park, which opened in 2020, featuring murals and plaques that honor Dr. King's life and legacy. And whereas the town is proud to recognize and celebrate Black people and Black history in Carrboro and across the nation during Black History Month. And whereas the town is committed to advancing racial equity and has recently taken multiple actions in support of this commitment, including joining the Government Alliance on Race Equity in 2018, and in 2019, establishing a racial equity core team of employees who are leading the way toward equitable system changes across the organization. Adopting the Carrboro Connects 2022 through 2042 comprehensive plan with race equity as a foundational theme. establishing a process in which the racial equity assessment lens or equity pocket questions accompany council agenda items to help provide a deeper awareness and guidance in decision making and centering equity. The unveiling of a third truth plaque at the Strayhorn House, located at 109 Jones Ferry Road, home to the first Black family in Carrboro. Including funds in the fiscal year 2023 budget to conduct a disparity study that will inform changes to the town's procurement policies to increase opportunities for minority business enterprises. Designating December 13th, 2023, and every December 13th thereafter as Braxton Duncan Foushee Day of Service in Carrboro. On this day, the town will encourage the residents of Carrboro to learn and reflect on Carrboro's Black history and perform an act of service for their neighbors or the community. Presenting the Carrboro Community Safety Alternatives to Policing Recommendation Report, renaming East and West Carr Street to Braxton Foushee Street on November 29th, 2023, adopting the first Racial Equity Action Plan, also known as REAP, on November 29th, 2023, which will weave equity into Carrboro town government. And whereas local celebrations of Black History Month this year will include a Black History Month concert series, a performance of the one-woman stage play, The Spirit of Harriet Tubman, a 2-night lecture series, African Americans and the Arts, focusing on social justice movements and artistic awareness, and celebrating Black people in America and how music was the escape from the unjust in the community, and a poet's open mic held via Zoom. And whereas, in addition to the scheduled events, the town will host a month-long youth art exhibit on the Carrboro Recreation Parks and Cultural Resources Department's website, 28 days of Black history trivia and inspiring quotes, all shared via the town's social media channels. And whereas, in May and June of this year, the town will again partner with the Music Maker Foundation to host the 10th anniversary of the Freight Train Blues Friday concert series in celebration of local music legend and Grammy Award recipient Elizabeth Cotton. Whereas numerous other celebrations of Black History Month will occur around the Triangle, a listing of which can be found at triangleonthecheap.com/Black History Month. And whereas learning about Black history is beneficial for everyone and helps to dissuade racism and is relevant year-round. And now, therefore, I, Barbara M. Foushee, Mayor of the town of Carrboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month in Carrboro and encourage all residents to participate in local Black History Month events and to learn about and celebrate the lives, history, and contributions of Black people during this month and throughout the year. This, the 30th day of January 2024. Yeah. Thought you was just gonna come up here and stand.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening. I made such a long speech a couple of weeks ago for MLK Day that I was almost out. But it's good to be back in Carrboro. And with Carrboro, my last residence was here. I went to high school here. I lived in Carrboro 67, 68. And since then, I was with the U.S. Department of Energy, and Carrboro was one of the towns that I targeted to bring money back. In fact, I have an article that says the first $30,000, which was the first $30,000 grant. Now, back in '78, that was a lot of money to bring to a small town, and I just pride myself with being able to do that. And since returning home, I've been very active with the Breakfast Club. A lot of the elected officials have come to the Breakfast Club, and recently been elected to president of the NAACP. So I applaud the town of Carrboro for what you're doing. I think it's admirable to be able to recognize the contributions of African Americans, of black folks in your town, and throughout the nation, because a lot of times we're overlooked. Carrboro, for a 1 month, I always say they gave us the shortest month, and then they tried to put a couple other things in there, but still we stand out and are pleased to have what you're doing. I commend Mayor Fushi and like what you're doing. Thank you.
Announcement of upcoming meetings.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. We have some upcoming meetings to announce. Starting with tomorrow, Thursday, February 1st, we have a few virtual meetings. We have the Appearance Commission that'll be meeting at 7:30 virtually. The Northern Transition Area Advisory Committee meeting at 6:30. The Environmental Advisory Board meeting at 7:30. The Planning Board meeting at 7:30. And the Transportation Advisory Board meeting virtually. All of these are meeting virtually on Thursday, February 1st. On Friday, February 2nd, we have the Town Council Legislative Breakfast from 8 to 10. That'll be here in the council chambers. Monday, February 5th, we have Carrboro Tourism Development Authority meeting from 3 to 4 p.m. virtually. And then next week, our February 6th next Town Council meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, pardon. Sorry, I do have one update to that. I believe the NTAAC meeting has been canceled.
Thank you, Councilmember Frey. Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Tomorrow morning, there is an Experience the Future of Tourism in Orange County at the Carolina Inn, sponsored by the Orange County and Chapel Hill Tourism.
I have a couple. Welcome, Legal Aid of North Carolina, to the town of Carrboro. The Legal Aid of North Carolina Field Office, which was formerly located in Pittsboro, North Carolina, has moved to 205 West Main Street, Suite 203 in Carrboro. And so if anyone is in need of any type of legal assistance, Legal Aid is here in our community, and I believe they are not only serving Orange County, they're serving multiple counties. I feel like eight different counties. So their office has moved here. There is any number, quite a bit, of Black History Month events in town. Please visit the town website for more information. There is an NAACP meeting Saturday at 1 p.m. at RENA. I bring this up because there will be a special guest that will be talking about voter education as well as critical issues impacting the election process in North Carolina. So for all those that would be interested in those announcements, that is what I have.
To add to that, Mayor, there's also a voter ID event that's happening here.
Oh, yes, it
I
is.
forgot
Thank
to
you,
mention
Wendy.
that. But so that'll be here on Friday, February 2nd from 2 to 5 p.m. You can come by and get your voter ID made for the upcoming voting season.
Councilmember Posada?
Madam Clerk, can you just let folks know what do they need to bring in order to get that ID at the event?
I think it's pretty simple. I think they just need to bring, I apologize for not knowing, but I do know that it is posted on our social media sites as to what needs to be. And I can find that out real quick. I apologize.
Thank you. I see we are down to public comment, and we have one person signed up to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, and that is Miss Renee Flamp. Come on up. The clock for public comment timer is here. You have soft 3 minutes. Please address your comments to the entire council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. I was here in December, and a friend of mine was with me, Hassan Wahid, and I was a little anxious to ask my questions, so he asked it for me, and now I'm here to get clarification. I understand that there's been no decision about what will be done with the Pathway Drive parcel of land that the town is exploring right now. I've been concerned about a future conflict of interest for the surveyors that have been hired. Hassan asked the question about Summit as the surveyor being potentially in the running to bid on the development should this come to pass. I was confused by the answers given to Hassan and watched the video later on for clarity, and that didn't help. He asked, to avoid a conflict of interest, is the survey are the surveyors a potential builder or not? Is that a possibility? The town manager responded, it's not the builder, it's the surveyor. Hassan then asked, so they don't have the potential to get a contract out of that, at which point the town manager shook her head no. Then she said, they are contracted by the builder though, but it's a separate company. Hassan asked, so they are contracted by the builder, isn't that a conflict of interest? Then she said she misspoke and clarified, they are contracted by the engineer. Then the mayor at the time clarified that where we are in the process is simply surveying the property, which I understand. There is no builder in the picture because there's been no decision by the council what will or will not happen on Pathway Drive. So this sounds like the survey company is contracted by the town engineer, not a builder. That was his response. So to my way of thinking, there is a builder in the picture, and it's Summit, which is doing the survey. I have concerns about a conflict of interest. Just to be clear, the Summit's website says they do every aspect of building, from architecture to actual building and more. I think they're building something in Chapel Hill right now. In the About section, they seem to put surveying forward as their foundational offering, for which they are proud. A line directly from their service overview page says, surveying has been a core service of Summit since our firm's inception. So I want to underscore that I hear you when you say we're just in the exploration stage and not even close to deciding what to do with that. I get that. But these answers don't speak to me about the conflict of interest. In order to create a plan with integrity, those planning should be looking ahead and exploring future possibilities so appropriate decisions are being made now. I don't see how I don't see how we wouldn't be able to think in terms of hypotheticals. Hypothetically, if we do build, Summit would not be able to put in a bid without the fact that they'd been contracted or subcontracted to do the survey, which is a conflict of interest. I don't think anyone could disagree with the logic, so I'm thinking I must be missing something and need clarification, though I can see the whole question took my whole time. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Ms. Flam. Town Manager Parker, do you have any comments as far as trying to clarify that? I mean, for me, we are still in the site survey process. I have not seen a report, and I don't think there's one available yet about the site survey. I was not aware of any type of conflict with Summit. It was that Summit that you were saying. I was just under the impression they were. I know they're just surveying, but I didn't know what their other business was. So anything that you could add to help the clarification along from Ms. Flam, I think
With
is
it
what
in mind
she's
that I
looking
know
for.
we're no further. It's just that it seems that there should be no potential for someone who's doing a survey to potentially bid on the project. That would be a conflict of interest right from the start.
We haven't gotten to that step in the process. We're just surveying at this point, and that's all that we have consulted with them to do.
But shouldn't we have picked a surveyor who only surveys and doesn't build? Or be able to say, yep, you're right, we're not using, if we ever build, we wouldn't let them put in a bid because that would be inappropriate.
I think we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. We're just at the surveying stage now.
Yeah, and as I said, this type of decision generally happens on the operations side of town council work. And so staff is, you know, uniquely positioned to make these types of decisions. And for the step we're at, you know, I'm just confident, you know, about the survey. And this is where we are. We're just doing the survey. And there are multiple more steps to go before we would even get to any type of project.
Which I
mean,
understand.
Yeah, and I understand your concern, but again, we're just still on the survey.
Okay.
Does that help, or
It really doesn't. I don't know.
because
if I'm
we
really-
don't have a project
right,
on
but
the table?
If, like, I think we should be able to be hypothetical. Okay, so if there were a project, we should choose someone just to do the survey, because we don't want any bias. Surveys are not totally objective.
Okay, so this is what we'll do. We have heard, Town Manager Parker, you have heard the concern from Ms. Flam, and so that concern is recorded. You have it. And so, you know, we'll keep that in mind, you know, as the process
Yeah,
moves
appreciate
forward.
it.
And I think that's what you're asking for, you know, when we move down the road, if we
Yeah.
do.
If we do, I just think it should be done in a way that we're following the rules, no conflict of interest, everybody, like, it should be objective at this point. And somebody who might have something in the running isn't gonna, it's just not clean, and it should
Okay.
be.
All right, I appreciate your comments. Town Manager Parker has those comments, and so we'll hold on to those
Thank you.
as we move along in the process.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Madam Mayor, if I could follow up on Councilmember Posada's request to know
Yes.
what happened at the. So for the voter ID event happening on Friday from 2 to 5 here in the council room, for you to obtain your ID, all you need to do is come fill out a request form, have your name, date, and the last 4 digits of your social security number. That's it.
We are at the consent agenda, Town Manager Parker.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, council members. The first item on the consent agenda is a request to issue a street closing permit. This agenda item is to request Town Council adopt a resolution to issue a street closing permit for East Weaver Street from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Friday, April 12th of this year to host Slade Design Fashion Show 2024. The second item is to make authority appointments. This item is for the Town Council to consider appointments to the Carrboro Tourism Development Authority and to select a chairperson. The next item is a commission appointment. This item is to make an appointment to the Racial Equity Commission. The next item is a resolution for the November special election. This item is to allow Town Council to set the filing fee and filing period for the November special election, fill the vacancy on Town Council that was created by Mayor Foushee, assuming the office of mayor. The next item is a Town Code amendment to codify street name change. This is to request that the Town Council amend the Town Code to change all references from Phipps Street to Lavender Street. The next item is a Town Code amendment to establish a traffic management system at West Poplar and Davy Road. We are requesting Town Council to consider adopting an amendment to the Carrboro Town Code that would establish a 4-way stop at the intersection of West Poplar Avenue and Davy Road. The next item is an approval of acceptance of a $5,000 donation. This agenda item is to request Town Council consider a budget amendment to accept and appropriate a $5,000 contribution from the Carroll Woods Charitable Fund to support the Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Resource Department's Active Life programs, which provide enriching activities and opportunities for older adults in the community. The next item is a street renaming cost assistance. This item is to allocate funds for cost assistance to offset direct and indirect costs to residents affected by the renaming of East and West Carr Street to Braxton Foushee Street. The next item is a budget amendment for security upgrades to Town Hall. In the FY 23-24 budget adopted on June 20, 2023, Council approved the appropriation of $1 million in unassigned fund balance to be used for the purpose of Town Hall renovations. $145,000 of this funding will be appropriated for the purpose of security upgrades in the Capital Projects Fund. The final item is to upgrade Deputy Town Clerk position. This is to convert the Deputy Town Clerk position from part-time to a full-time role effective immediately.
Thank you, Town Manager Parker. I will be pulling consent agenda item number 8. I will be recusing myself from this item in the interest of transparency and because of my relationship with Braxton Fouché. And so I would like to get a motion and a second to pass number 8, which I will not be voting for. I did recuse myself from the original discussion and subsequent vote on this matter, and I will continue to do that in the interest of transparency. So a motion and a second for number 8.
I'll move number 8.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. No further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we have,
Well, I want to pull,
you want to pull something?
I want to pull 5 for a comment and 7 for a recommendation. Number 5 is, I just want to thank Brian Pence and Caroline Wells for their work to organize neighbors in the change of name from Phipps to Lavender. I went past the street a couple weeks ago, and I was delighted to see that the name change was in place. So thank you for your advocacy. And on the $5,000 donation from Carol Woods to the Recs and Parks and Cultural Resources Department, I had sent an email, and if when the Recs and Parks Department specifies the programs to which that donation is being made, I would like that to be shared with council. And with that, I'll move the entire consent agenda. That remains.
All right, so moved by Councilmember Haven O'Donnell, seconded by Councilmember Posada, that we move the rest of the consent agenda item. There's no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Manager Parker, we are on to other matters.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Other matters, the first item is to authorize the mayor to execute an employment contract. This item is to request that the town council consider the attached resolution to authorize the mayor to execute an employment contract with Lamar Joyner for the position of town clerk.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So we do, council members, we do have attachment A. And I didn't know if there was any discussion or comments around this matter.
I would like to move it.
All right, so moved by council member Now, seconded by council member Haven O'Donnell, that authorizes the mayor to execute an employment contract with Lamar Joyner for the position of town clerk. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries on that item.
The next item is for consideration of additional legislative priorities. This agenda item is so the town council can discuss and consider legislative priorities for 2024.
Thank you, Town Manager Parker. So the purpose of this item, of course, is for us to discuss and consider legislative priorities for 2024. We do have in front of us the North Carolina League of Municipalities legislative goal statements, as well as some legislative priorities from the 2021 long session, and our own legislative priorities for the 2024 session. And this, we want to approve this ahead of our legislative breakfast on Friday. And so if there are any questions or comments or additions, I see Councilmember Haven O'Donnell.
Yeah, first, I'd like to make a couple of comments about the legislative goal statements from NCLM. First, on the second bullet where it says create an adequate and permanent funding stream for local infrastructure, I would like us to underscore not only water, sewer, roads, stormwater, but flooding, because flooding very often isn't directly as a result of stormwater areas. But, so I want to make sure to underscore that. Second, on the bullet on support integrated and multimodal transportation solutions, one of the big problems that we see around the state is the lack of conversation around suburban options with multimodal. And the microtransit. So I'd like that underscored for that bullet. On the bullet having to do with expanding incentives and funding for local economic development, we need to include non-traditional entrepreneurial enterprise, which is key to supporting local economic development. And BIPOC businesses. And finally, on the water systems, cleanup from polluters, we need to press our legislators for a state standard on filtration systems. And we know that some filtration systems have been developed in Wilmington and Leland, North Carolina. We need to not simply look at water standards, because forever chemicals only accumulate. They're not going anywhere. So a standard, is less than the minimum, I think. It's really a nothing burger. I think we really need to push for a plan for a filtration system. So that was my comment on that, and I'll hold the other unless you want me to. I had requested that we partner with Orange County on legislation that will help us locally to designate a distance for vape shops from schools. I know that's a problem in some municipalities, and I know here in Carrboro, we have schools that are close to downtown, and we certainly want to limit the access and the attention to vaping, especially because we don't even know what's in that stuff. And we certainly don't want children to have easy access. So I know Orange County, I had heard from a commissioner just the other day that they have interest, and I would like us to pair with Orange County. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Haven O'Donnell. And so I did send around an email to the council about this matter, and also received some guidance from Town Attorney Herman, and had a few questions, but I think for the most part, council was on board with this. And so, I guess we can go ahead and add it, to the list. Mayor Pro Tem now.
That's Danny's good.
Danny.
Is that appropriately considered here as part of our legislative priorities, or would that be a different? I would think in coordination with the county level, that's kind of a separate issue from like what
It
we're
is.
asking for at the state delegation.
It is,
right?
so we would not be adding.
And,
You're correct.
and I'm supportive of it. I think
correct.
it's, but I think that I don't know if maybe we want to later in the meeting direct staff to bring us. Well, I guess if we're coordinating with, I'm just not sure parliamentarily the right way to move that forward, whether we need to beyond what we've done over email.
Mm-hmm.
but that's in support of it. It's just sort of a
I think
point
we
of
can
clarification.
tell them.
Cool.
You can mention it just in open dialogue. But I guess I would be looking at Nick right now, about this proposed ordinance, because I think it's still moving around, not just to us, but, to the town of Chapel Hill and probably Hillsborough, for consideration. So I think that's where we are right now.
It's very local as opposed to statewide legislation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and it's going to be, there is language coming from one of our other partners? The county will be providing language?
Yeah, because I received the initial email from Commissioner Fowler, and so the other municipalities will be weighing in about it at some point. So there'll be some language.
Great.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm otherwise supportive of the ads. I think, in addition to accepting what Randy's proposing, it strikes me that there's just a little bit of housekeeping in potentially revisiting some of the 21 long session goals. Is that kind of what we're doing here? Maybe trimming some of those older ones
could.
and reaffirming our 24 list?
Just kind of
The action we would like to take here?
threw that in just in case.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to my mind, COVID-19 pandemic,
Yeah, we cut that off. That's
yeah, we can remove that. Not that it's not still a focus, but just in terms of, I think prioritization, a relative, I think those balls are rolling and we want to keep our eye on that, but we sort of can do that here on our end. Broadband, I would like to reaffirm. Flooding and stormwater assistance, it sounds like, with Randy's ads, we're still very into. Stormwater mitigation. I'm curious whether, and this is just a real estate question for me. I'm supportive of continued movement on police video camera footage viewing and release for governing boards. But I know that there has been some movement on that, and I don't know whether we want to continue to, sort of look at the policies that have come down since 2020. Again, not opposed to continuing to keep an eye on that, but in the interest of maybe trimming that, I think we may have other priorities right now.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, on the reparations bullet, I think that we're going to kind of pick the ball up in some ways locally. There's some things we're talking about with our race equity work that I think we kind of may have our hands better around than the state is likely to. And I think we are kind of capable of doing our own research from this board and prioritizing more tightly with the state. Again, that's I'm happy to be overruled there, but all of these suggestions are with just a mind to trimming the list for focus. And I think if we took those out, we would have a not insane list otherwise, considering the 24 ads.
And so let me be clear, police video camera footage viewing and release for governing boards, you would like to see that move off.
Yes.
And the begin policymaking and enact a program to allocate funding for reparations. We are doing some work here. But I'm not sure I want that one to come off completely.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So that one, I would probably say I would leave that one there. Was there another one you wanted to come off?
COVID-19 pandemic.
So COVID comes off.
And again, this is just with, I would assume that they need kind of a smaller list to focus.
Okay. So full restoration of public transportation budget, state maintenance assistance program, authority for OWASA to safely reuse certain potable waters. I think both of those are still relevant. Anyone else? Okay. Councilmember Posada, so we know what we are leaving off. Everyone's okay with that? Motion by Councilmember Posada. Get a second by Councilmember Frey.
Will that include these comments?
Putting the amendments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those. Yeah, all except for those two. No further questions. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries, and thank you. Thank you, Dan. Town Manager Park.
The next item is a resolution to adopt a policy revision. This is to adopt a rewrite of the business revolving loan program policy. The town's Economic Development Director, John Hartman Brown, is here to give a brief presentation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. So, we currently have a business revolving loan fund, as many of you may know. And so what we're proposing tonight is really kind of rewriting the policy to make it much more equitable, but also really take down a lot of the barriers that are challenges that we've faced in that policy. So what we'll do is we'll start out with kind of just a little bit of a background on the loan program, kind of go into some of the challenges, and then talk about the changes that are in this policy. I'll just be hitting it on a high level, so feel free to ask any questions as we go through. So a little bit of the background. The loan fund was started in 1986 with an emphasis on the creation and retention of jobs. Funds at that time could be used for a variety of things, including construction, acquisition of equipment or the buildings, as well as things like inventory. All of the applicants, all the loans were secured through agreements conveying the property, typically, because most of this loan at that time was used to actually purchase properties for businesses. And so the town would take a financial interest in the property, basically creating a lien against the property should the fund not be paid back. Obviously, that trend has changed. Most businesses now, especially in Carrboro, are leasing property rather than owning property. So some of the challenges with our existing policy is that it provides little guidance and standards. It's really kind of a one-page bullet point form. And so it doesn't really give us some good policy there, more of some highlights and guidance. It operates very much on the subjective terms. So the terms are very subjective, is based off of the recommendation from the Economic Sustainability Commission, and ultimately is set forth by the council. And as opposed to, of course, setting that out in a written policy. It also requires that real property be used for collateral and on any loan. So if you came and borrowed $10,000 or $5,000, we would say, okay, that's great, but we need real property to use as collateral against that loan. And most significantly, that the loan policy cannot, that the lien on the property cannot be in second position. So that means if you have a mortgage or any type of loan that's already against the land, you can't use that property as collateral for this loan program. Also, we do some credit checks and scores, and of course that's subjective to the Economic Sustainability Commission and their recommendation to the town council. So there's very little difference of if somebody had, a 700 credit score and came in, and somebody could be denied and somebody could be approved, and that's subjective. So we're trying to add more objectivity into the loan program. So some of the rewrites and the changes that we're proposing in here is, as I mentioned, getting to more objective terms, really talking about what is the interest rate going to be, what are the collateral requirements, security requirements for that. And of course, introducing the credit rating or standing of the applicant, the amount borrowed, and really putting those parameters around what those terms are going to be rather than just a standard for any loan. We're also removing some of those collateral requirements for lower amounts of loans. So if you're just coming in to borrow $10,000 from this loan program as gap financing, we don't need a $10,000 land or personal property. We can just do it simply similar to what you would do with like a credit card or something like that, with just a note. We also have created an internal credit system. So we've tried to remove the external credit components. We understand, of course, entrepreneurs, just because they might have had hard financial times in the past doesn't mean that they don't have a good idea, a good business idea. And so this new kind of internal credit system really allows us and gives us the flexibility to say, if you've got a good business idea, regardless of what your past or personal financial situation may have been, you can walk away potentially with that good business idea and some cash in hand to help you get started with that business. We also tie our rates to the prime rate, and that is just kind of an easy way for us to track what the interest rate can be over time without us having to try to reset that every year. We also provide additional benefits for low and moderate income entrepreneurs. So for those entrepreneurs, they have the opportunity to basically receive a higher principal loan. So understanding that low and moderate income entrepreneurs will have a harder time or may have a harder time getting access to capital, we want to make sure that we are expanding those opportunities for them to get that funding. We're also looking at expanding the geographic qualifications to include an area that we're calling the Carrboro area of economic influence. It's just basically an area that you'll see in the next slide here. It's really looking at our economy as a whole. So looking at what is Carrboro's economy? Obviously, it goes beyond the town limits. And so we're looking at helping to support and fund proposing to support and fund some of the maybe more agricultural-based businesses that are in this area. They're the ones who are providing, raw materials for our businesses. They're the ones who are providing food for our restaurants. And so we want to ensure that we're supporting them and assuring their success so that they can continue to support and encourage the success of businesses that are in town. The other thing that I think we've really tried to really keep in mind as we're moving through this rewrite is that we're trying to center equity and sustainability. And so we're doing that, of course, by creating more economic equity, by removing barriers to access. So getting back to that real property collateral issue, making sure that we're eliminating that to getting access to, at least somebody getting access to some funding without real property. And of course, limiting, allowing for the internal credit system for those with limited or no credit. We're also, of course, providing opportunities to expand on the principal amounts for BIPOC businesses as well as low and moderate income entrepreneurs. On the sustainability side, going back to the Carrboro economic influence area, we're really looking at trying to focus on the whole economy, and that includes agricultural-based and related businesses. We're also requiring a living wage for certain borrowers. So if borrowers meet a certain threshold of employees, they will be required to pay a living wage. And of course, we're encouraging all businesses to pay a living wage. And we're also creating kind of a new business category, which we're calling social businesses, and this is included in the loan program as well. And these are typically nonprofits that use business tactics to fund their missions. And so we're allowing them to come in here understanding and recognizing that they play an important part in our economy as well. So with that, are there any questions, recommendations that you have on the policy?
Thank you for the presentation, John.
Yeah.
Anybody have any? Councilmember
I
Haven
don't have a
O'Donnell.
question. John, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the Economic Sustainability Commission for your work. This is long overdue. It make it more effective and efficient, and create greater access for folks. So I think that this is wonderful, and with that, I'll move the item.
You have a question? Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Posada.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. John, thank you for the work on this. I just wanted a quick question. When you're, and it just popped as I was hearing the last category that we're creating, the social businesses. If you want to go back to the slide, you mentioned nonprofit. Now I'm curious, and maybe I just missed it, but would this be for nonprofits only like anchored in this area or that do work in this area. Like what I'm thinking of, some of the nonprofits that do a lot of like work around low income families may not be centered in Orange County, maybe headquartered in Raleigh or Durham, but do heavy work in this in this area. So I just wanted to clarify that. And if it's somewhere on here, please let me know so I can read it.
Yeah, so it's actually in the definitions section on page 4 of the policy, page 112 of your packet. It's section 4.7, social businesses. The caveat here is that for the social business, we want to try to encourage that business activity. So we're trying to differentiate, say, nonprofits that would maybe benefit from areas that my colleague Anne-Marie would work in housing and human services. So we're trying to differentiate those types of nonprofits that are relying more on donations and grant writing separate from those that actually function more like a business. So for example, Community Works would be an example of a social business. They are using business tactics. They are selling goods and services.
Like fee for service.
Yes, exactly. The Arts Center, they get very little from donations, and most of their funding comes from raising revenue from the services that they provide. So that's kind of the differentiation between what we're talking about. So I guess the short answer to your question is that they would need to have a physical presence in Carrboro in order to be able to be able to meet this definition.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor. We also have a second. And before we take the vote, I do want to follow up with what Councilmember Haven O'Donnell said. I really appreciate the work, this rewrite of the policy. It will be a game changer, and it will make it possible, for more people to be able to to take a part of the business revolving loan fund. And so thank you. And shout out to the Economic Sustainability Commission as well. So if there are no further questions, council members, all in favor there is a resolution. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Quick and easy. This was good. Town Manager Parker.
Okay. The next item is the retiring police officer service weapon policy. This agenda item requests the town council approve a written policy for future police officer retirements when an officer makes a request to purchase their service sidearm. The town's chief of police, Chief ATAC, is here to give a brief summary and will be available to answer any questions.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and council members. So this policy became a written policy after Lieutenant Quick retired this past summer, and a question was raised by Councilmember Posada. So what we did is, Town Manager White and we conducted a survey of law enforcement agencies statewide through the North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police. We also reached out to local agencies to get some idea of what their retirement policies were. We got 14 total responses. 13 of the agencies indicated that they did allow the officers to purchase their weapon at the time of retirement or gifted it at the time of retirement. And so this policy, what it does is kind of lays out those parameters for the Carrboro Police Department. You have to have 10 years of service with the police department. You would be retiring, not leaving employment. It would be a retirement. And it just creates that written policy. Today, earlier, we had a ceremony for Lieutenant Mike Metz, who retired today after just over 25 years, and Chief Hutchison was there. She retired in 2013, and I asked her, I said, how long has this been the practice of the police department? And she said, well, it goes back to at least 1984, so at least that far back. So this just formalizes it in a written way.
Councilmember Posada and then Councilmember Frey.
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the responsiveness and actually seeing this in front of me and the research done with other spaces that just having this written down makes me feel a lot more comfortable. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate the research that you've done on this. I still do have myself a question as to whether it meets the goals of Carrboro to arm civilians. That said, that is not in any way out of a lack of respect for the service of these officers, and I appreciate the background of the tradition and the policy. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Chief, I do share Councilmember Frey's concern, and I think, for reasons that are consistent with conversations we've been having. Personally, I don't think the moment of an officer's retirement is the time to change this policy. And at the risk of sort of being banal, one of the things that occurs to me is, I'm sorry, this really may be a stupid question, but like we would know if any of these firearms had ever been implicated in any problems, right? That has never happened.
Yes, so the question of concern about a firearm in general is they are hazardous by nature, right? So yes, that came up this summer, and the question is, are the officers that asked for it either retiring in good standing? Are they of the type that would be qualified and capable of being safe with this item? And the answer is yes.
And so is there an opportunity? I mean, this is one of those things where I don't want vibes to stand in the way of proper recognition of our officers, the reality that they have certain expectations that are in line with what other municipalities have. And I don't want you wasting time on work that is not like super material. So with all of that caveated, I do wonder if we might not, is there some way to work with our officers toward finding some other way? Would it be a major disrespect to them to work toward? I mean, I would love to move away from this in the long term. I'm never going to want to do that on this evening. Didn't want to do it on the last evening. And so, I think if there is the opportunity to work with our officers to find another way to, I'm not exactly sure parliamentarily if this needs to be like directive or if this is something that we can just kind of keep in dialogue throughout. I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are as I ramble.
So public safety agencies will have traditions, right? Like in the fire department, the big thing at retirement is usually the helmet and an axe, right? And for law enforcement, it's usually the badge and the gun. It's just part of that tradition about the office of law enforcement. And so I think you can explore alternative options. Under the state law, the officer has the right to ask, even if we don't have a policy, even if we don't want to do it. So I don't want to put anyone in a position where we're, to your point, exactly right, is recognizing the service. And not all officers who retire request this. It's an option they have, but I think we can look down the road and see if there's an exploration, if that's something.
I appreciate the reminder about the state policy too. We're not going to be able, to clarify, that means we would not be able to prevent our officers from buying their sidearm if they
No,
chose.
you as the town council have the authority to authorize it.
That's what the statute.
It's a state statute, but it gives the town council the authority to authorize that.
Councilmember Merrill, did you have something?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is something we can explore more in detail later, but maybe it's a matter as simple as offering another, it's like, you can have your gun and your badge, or you can have $1,000. Yeah. and let the officer decide ultimately, just like, there's a lot of me like, I'll take $1,000.
So there were some agencies that also had other things.
Right.
But the question was, is this the norm for your agency? So there were some that had cash opportunities, and there were some, as you see, some that allowed the officer to purchase it, and some that gifted it. So there is some variation there, but that's something we can explore.
Yeah, and I think it's good to honor that tradition and have that be like one of the things. Like, yeah, you can still have, that could be kind of our compromise, possibly. We can talk about it later, but I just want to throw that out, an idea that.
Finally, 25 years, remarkable, really. I know that we have the further, the further agenda item specific to Officer Metz, but I do just want to ground this discussion, as Councilmember Frey did, in our deep appreciation to Officer Metz.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Mayor, I would like to move the item.
Okay.
Second.
And I have one more question about the local agencies. Did I miss Chapel Hill Police Department on the list?
But Chapel Hill was one of the responders to the survey, and they do not award officers their firearm.
What do they? What did they do? Do they?
I'll have to double check. They did not. If the officer was a member of their officers association, there was a cash award. But if they were not a member of the officers association, I do not believe there was anything. I'll confirm that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I see Hillsborough here, Orange County, UNC, and I didn't see Chapel Hill. So the recommendation, staff recommends that the council approve the attached policy. So we have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
5-1. Motion carries. Did you
I want
have
to
one?
ask you to thank Officer Metz. I remember when he started.
There are 2 people left at the police department that worked at the police department when it was in this building.
Oh, wow.
2 people left. So, yeah. Time flies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief ATAC.
Do I need to stay up here for the other, or
You're up next, looks like. Town Manager Parker.
I'll just stand right here?
Thank you, Mayor. The final item is to adopt a resolution to award a service sidearm to a retiring police officer. Police Lieutenant Michael Metz will retire from the town of Carrboro Police Department on February 1st after 25 years of service with the town. The police department would like to award Lieutenant Metz his service sidearm to recognize his dedication to duty and his service to the town of Carrboro. The town council is requested to adopt by resolution town staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Town Manager Parker. Before we dive here, I need to backtrack. Are we giving direction to Town Manager Parker, Chief ATAC, at all about the previous item? We did give you some direction, I believe, to find, I guess, some other ways, or to survey and see if there were other ways. Was that the direction?
I don't think it was specific. I think it was generally, let's figure out down the road if we want to turn that into something specific.
If we want to do it. Okay. And so, Chief ATAC, you're the contact here. Take it away.
So I can just tell you a little bit about Lieutenant Metz, Mike Metz. He was in the Army for 4 years, then he got hired and came to the Carrboro Police Department, and he was telling a little bit about that today. And he started a few months before I did, but he talks about how, if you knew Lieutenant Rodney Taylor, who was an officer that retired here, is from the community, he was telling a story. He said, and I can do a good mimic of Lieutenant Taylor's voice, but I won't do it tonight.
Can you not do it?
But he was talking about how Lieutenant Metz, when he first came out of the Army and came to Carrboro, he's like, okay, we're going to calm you down. And he was instrumental, and Mike talked about it today, about how he learned how we do it here. And he said, it helped me relax, thank you. and 25 years later, he's retiring. So Mike's done a lot of wonderful things over his career. When we had some lingering cases, homicides from the 80s and 90s, some involving children, Mike was instrumental when he was in criminal investigations to getting those solved. DNA technology evolved, so he got those solved and was able to charge people. And that's, there's a lot of hurt and lingering pain. We still have some work to be done, but Mike was instrumental. He's on the rough exterior, but he's got a big heart. And a lot of the stories today talked about his career and his service were really, really neat to hear. So,
thank you, Chief ATAC, and congratulations to Police Lieutenant Michael Metz on his retirement after 25 years of service with the town of Carrboro. That's very honorable and admirable. Any questions or discussion about anything? Motion to approve the attached resolution.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief ATAC, again.
thank you.
That was the last item on the agenda. Any matters by the board, by council members? Councilmember Frey and then Councilmember Merrill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
I have an invitation to bring to you from the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness.
was in
When
the
we
meeting, so-
met yesterday, you're well aware. We've been invited, each of us, to sign up for a shift to work with emergency shelter. It is not only budget season coming up, but it is also the cold season. And the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness, along with, of course, other many partners, including IFC, have been working heroically for the last, I believe, 33 nights off and on through this winter to offer the cold weather cots program to extend shelter to more people than could ordinarily be accommodated. And the next stretch of weather where we're going to have nights below 32 is next week. So this is a personal invitation from me to each of you to sign up for a shift. If you have any questions about how to do that, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Councilmember Frey. I believe sometimes emails come out, email appeals. I think I've seen a couple. So thank you for bringing that forward from the meeting last night. Councilmember Merrill.
Yeah, my comment and then request was in regards to the Poplar Davy stop signs. I'm super glad. So I wanted to say thanks, staff, to actually getting that done. I know it was in response to a specific request from somebody that lived over there that kind of lingered for quite a while and then suddenly got done. So really glad about that. And it we got a lot of emails from folks who live around there that were also excited to see that happen, and they made mention of a lot of kind of concerning behaviors and safety issues in that corridor. So I was going to ask if it's possible for town staff to report back to us in the spring with what that corridor between 54 and Main Street looks like now compared to plans that we have in place, like the bicycle plan, and with a specific eye towards safety improvements that could be made in that corridor in general. This is low-hanging fruit, and I think it's great, and I'm glad that we could get it done. But I think it's a Band-Aid on kind of a larger issue. So
Thank you,
Question.
Councilmember Merrill. Town Manager Parker has that.
Yeah.
Councilmember
Yeah.
Haven O'Donnell.
I guess my question to staff is if we can get an update on the status from FEMA for the homes at 115 Carroll. And I'm asking because I don't know, last week drove down James and saw that one of the houses that was elevated is now for sale. So, and I know that they had the folks who are leaving that house at least, in the last couple of years, continue to have problems even though the house was elevated. So, if we could get an update on that, that would be great.
What was that again, Randy? What was that?
115 Carroll was the ongoing FEMA flooding issue, which they've just had a recent flooding again.
It was 116.
For me, Randy, I believe it's 116.
116.
116 Carroll
And
Street.
and because as I said, I noticed that the folks at 100 James are selling, and I'm wondering if that's connected with Trish. Wasn't 100 James, wasn't that elevated? That wasn't elevated? Okay. Okay, yeah. So we need to kind of look into these. I mean, I wouldn't want somebody to buy the house not knowing that.
Mhm. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn at 8:15 p.m.? Second. Who's the second? I need a
Second.
All right. So it's been moved and properly seconded. Let's adjourn. Aye.
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 no opposed. Good night.